FG, and raw materials. Some may be familiar with these terms, but inventory has a language that can confuse many. In this section, we will try to clarify the language of inventory and help you understand how the different terms are used. Let's start by explaining that inventory, whether a finished good or a raw material, begins with a certain amount of value. As transformation occurs, value is added to the inventory. Many of the terms that we will explain depend on either where in the transformation process the inventory lies, where in the supply chain it is located, or what the function of the inventory is. Keep this in mind as we review the language of inventory. In the next few sections, we will review terms like raw materials, work in progress, finished goods, in transit or pipeline inventory, and MRO or maintenance, repair, and operations inventory. To make this simple and comprehensive, we will cover each of these in individual videos. Now, before we go, we'd like to hear from each of you. So, here's a question for you. We'd like to invite you to answer the following question in the community, comments, or upcoming assignments. What type of inventory for you is most common, and how do you think understanding the language of inventory could benefit the supply chain and your industry? Thanks for watching, everyone, and don't forget to stay active in the community and visit often. We'll see you in the next lecture. Raw materials, components, and subassemblies are where inventory begins. As you know, inventory, whether a raw material or a finished product, has some value to it. As the raw material is transformed, more value is added to it. With this in mind, a raw material is any purchased, supplied, or extracted item that will eventually be transformed via a manufacturing or transformative process. The raw material or materials are generally converted into components or a finished product. Let's look at an example. As you can see, this sheet is a raw material that is being prepared for the transformative process. Another example of a raw material is in the form of extracted materials. Here we can see extracted materials in a facility. Keep in mind that raw materials are different from raw data. Raw data is found in the information side of a value stream, not in the materials side. The concept is the same though. Raw materials typically are found in a supplier's possession awaiting shipment to a manufacturer. If the raw material is at a facility, they typically are waiting for processing or some other type of transformative process to begin. Extracted materials can also be found in different areas of the land, labs, or other areas. Components are a little different from raw materials. For example, computers are made up of many different parts, such as a motherboard, CPU, RAM, and hard drive. Each of these parts are made up of smaller parts. We call these smaller parts components. A component could be a raw material, subassembly, or a part. Components go into a higher level assembly, item, or part. Some examples of components might be hardware, batteries, welding materials, or seals. Let's now turn our attention to subassemblies and answer the question, what is a subassembly? A subassembly is used to build an assembly. A subassembly is not a component. It is an assembly that is used in a higher level of a bill of materials. Subassemblies could be one component or a number of components that are used and assembled into a unit and form a larger part or higher level assembly. For example, if we were building a car, the end item or independent requirement is the car, with many sub-assemblies. One subassembly is the tires. The subassembly of tires goes into the car assembly. As an aside, the subassembly of tires includes components such as the rubber tire, the rim, and the lug nuts. We've now learned about raw materials, components, and subassemblies. These are all forms of inventory. Now, before we go, we'd like to invite you to answer the following question in the community, comments, or upcoming assignments. What raw material, components, or subassembly examples can you think of? We look forward to hearing your responses, and we'll see you in the next lecture. Is inventory that enters your facility considered work in progress? In this section, we will dig into one of the largest forms of inventory in an organization, work in progress inventory. Let's begin by defining the term work in progress. Work in progress, or process, refers to one form of inventory. WIP, as it is often referred to, is the work that is in process or production at a stage that falls between raw material and finished product. To put it another way, WIP is when an organization has possession of raw materials and they have moved those raw materials into production to begin the transformative process. WIP can be located all throughout an organization, from released raw materials up to the point just before inventory becomes a finished product. Work in progress may also include goods that are not complete, such as partially finished goods, semi-finished goods, and items that have begun processing but not reached a finished state yet. An example of partially finished goods is any product that is waiting, stored, or in queue in a partially complete form. These semi-finished goods are not considered complete until they complete their transformative process and have met the required specifications of a completed product. Let's break down this idea of work in progress. A company acquires some raw materials inventory. It is waiting to be manufactured. No value is being added in this waiting stage. Now, let's say the company releases a work order and this material is placed on a machine and begins the transformative process. Value is now being added to it. In this exact moment that these raw materials entered production, they now become WIP. How about parts that are sitting, waiting to be finished? Well, this depends entirely on whether they have started production or not. If a supplier's finished product is received but has not started production, it is still considered a raw material at the facility that received it. When that raw material enters production, it now becomes WIP. Let's now consider a unique circumstance. Let's say that a company operates in an assemble-to-order environment. In fact, let's say it's a sandwich shop. We have sliced turkey, roasted chicken, and tuna. We also have condiments such as mustard, mayonnaise, and a few others too. In addition to this, there are many different types of sliced cheese. All of the sandwich supplies are prepared in the morning and then placed in various bins until the customer arrives. Since the sandwich supplies are decoupled from the actual sandwich assembly process, a customer can custom order what they want. Now, let's focus on the roasted chicken. Is this item considered a raw material, work in progress, or a finished good? This item, like all the other items that were prepared in the morning, is considered work in progress. Even though they are staged at different points in the process to decouple assembly, they were prepared in the morning and are therefore considered semi-finished. One last thing to note. If you have trouble with inventory, especially WIP, continuous improvement strategies like Lean and Six Sigma help to reduce inventory and work in progress. You now know what work in progress inventory is. But before we go, we'd like to give you a little challenge. We'd like to invite you to answer the following question in the community, comments, or upcoming assignments. What examples of work in progress can you think of? Share your answers in the community, comments, or upcoming assignments, and we'll see you soon. Finished goods are products or end items that are sold as a complete item or unit. These items are commonly subject to a customer order, sales order, or purchase order that is linked directly to a customer. Finished goods and products are an extension of your inventory. They are materials or products that have reached a point in either the manufacturing or transformative process where they are available for consumption. You can calculate finished goods using a formula that will also help create an inventory ratio, which determines the value of your goods for sale. Finished goods inventory is generally considered a short-term asset. Short-term assets are expected to sell in less than a year as opposed to long-term assets, which are typically investments that will be kept for longer than a year. Let's look at an example of finished goods. Finished goods are based on a number of different criteria that are specific to a company. For example, Care Bear Cafe is a company that bakes different types of cookies, cakes, and pastries. While the cafe's finished goods are the baked goods that are complete and ready to be sold, the assets that contribute to the finished goods include various ingredients for baking, cookware, and any labor needed to produce the finished goods. Another example might be a car manufacturer. The car manufacturer's finished goods would include the end item car or items that are available directly to the consumer. You may be thinking, how do I calculate the total amount of finished goods inventory? Well, let's take a look. Calculating your finished goods inventory can help you better understand the assets that you have on hand. In addition, it can help reveal waste and allow you to assess where you stand in terms of profits. Performing an analysis of product input versus product output can give you a clear view of mismatches in input and output balance, as well as make sure that inventory is not being produced at a quicker rate than it can be sold. One more benefit with regards to calculating finished goods is that it prevents selling items that are not in stock or available for orders. You're probably wondering, what is the formula? The formula is cost of goods manufactured minus cost of goods sold plus previous period finished goods, and that will equal finished goods inventory. Let's look at an example from Care Bear's Cafe. Let's say that Care Bear's Cafe bakes $2,000 in delicious treats. Let's then say they sell $1,000 worth of treats. Now, on the previous day, the cafe finds that they had $500 in treats. Working with our formula, we apply the following. $2,000 in cost of goods manufactured minus $1,000 in cost of goods sold equals $1,000. Now we must add the finished goods inventory from the previous period, which was $500. That means that Care Bear's Cafe currently has $1,500 in finished goods inventory. Keep in mind that templates for any equation are available in either the resource section, assignments, or the description of the video. Managing inventory can be quite complex, especially as finished goods inventory grows. For these types of situations, you may consider looking into inventory management software. You now know what finished goods inventory is, why it's beneficial to calculate, and a formula that you can use to calculate your finished goods inventory. Don't forget that a template is available in the resource section, assignment section, or the description of this video. So check it out. Also, we'd like to leave you with a fun little challenge. You can answer the question in the community, comments, or upcoming assignments. Assuming you have $5,000 in cost of goods manufactured, $3,000 in cost of goods sold, and your previous period's finished goods inventory totaled $250. What would your finished goods inventory be? Share your answer in the community, comments, or upcoming assignments, and we will see you in the next video. Bye now. In-transit or pipeline inventory is inventory that is in transit. Typically the inventory that has left the shipping dock of the seller or supplier but not yet reached the receiving dock of the buyer or customer. Any inventory that is in the pipeline is inventory that is moving within the supply chain. The idea helps clarify between the buyer and supplier whether the buyer or seller of goods has taken possession, as well as identifying who is paying for the transportation. A best practice is for either the buyer or supplier to record the inventory that is in transit in some type of log for accounting. Let's look at an example. Lean Strategies International LLC ships $5,000 of merchandise to K&K on November 18th. The terms of delivery are FOB or Freight on Board shipping point. The minute this inventory leaves Lean Strategies International LLC's facility and it is in transit or movement to the next destination, it becomes pipeline or in-transit inventory. These FOB terms mean that K&K takes ownership of the inventory when it leaves Lean Strategies International LLC shipping dock. Lean Strategies International LLC should record a sale transaction on November 18th, and K&K should record an inventory receipt on the same date as well. This will help keep track of what inventory is in transit or in the pipeline, and that's it. In transit or pipeline inventory. Now, before we go, we would like to give you a little challenge. We'd like to invite you to answer the following question in the community, comments, or upcoming assignments. If a facility drives an item to ship on an airplane, when does it become in-transit inventory? Explain your answer in the community, comments, or upcoming assignments. And don't forget to visit the community often, interact, engage, and learn. If possible, please consider subscribing, and we will see you next time right here where you can find solutions that ignite your power. Raw materials, work in progress, and finished goods are the main types of inventory you will hear about. You've also learned about maintenance, repair, and operations inventory, as well as inventory that is in transit. Interesting enough, How you classify inventory can differ based on where it falls in the supply chain or internal operations of an organization. For example, a company may pull raw materials in the form of trees. Next, they transform the tree into lot lumber that may be used in construction. While the lumber is a finished good for this company, it is a raw material for the construction company. Another example might be a wheel. One car facility may use a wheel on a car to complete the end item, and they may use the wheel as finished goods to sell directly to customers. As you can see, these two examples of inventory, from both a supply chain perspective and an internal value stream perspective, have value added to it in the transformation stages. However, inventory is not always transforming, and that is the goal. Eliminate all points where the item is not transforming and minimize any activities where the inventory is waiting or transporting. One of the best ways to minimize these forms of waste as inventory flows through the transformation process is by implementing the strategy known as Lean. Lean is a continuous improvement strategy that a company embarks on to maximize customer value and minimize waste. As you pull waste out of the different value streams in your organization, you will reduce tied-up capital, lead times, and the amount of inventory that you must carry. So, remember that you first need to understand the context of your inventory before you classify it. Now, before we go, we would like to give you a little challenge. What examples of inventory flow can you think of? Share your thoughts in the community, comments, or upcoming assignments. We look forward to hearing from each of you, and we'll see you in the next lecture right here on Lean Strategies International LLC. MRO inventory stands for Maintenance, Repair, and Operations Inventory. In general, it is used to maintain or repair items that are used in operations. This can include all the supplies of an organization uses for its production processes that do not become part of an end product or finished goods. MRO inventory is not a raw material. It is not work in progress, and it is not a finished product. MRO forms of inventory can include equipment, spare parts for production, consumables, office supplies, janitorial supplies, technology, and safety equipment. As you can see from these examples, MRO is used to support the production and operations and keep things running. Another key difference between MRO inventory and the other types of inventory is that MRO items do not generate revenue. Instead, they support the generation of revenue. With this understanding of MRO inventory, we should now turn our attention to answering the question, what happens if maintenance, repair, and operations inventory is neglected? To put it simply, MRO inventory should not be neglected. Even though it does not directly contribute to revenue, if MRO inventory is not monitored, it can cause big problems for a company. Issues like not meeting deadlines, frustrated customers, and downtime are some of the more common examples. These may not seem like a big impact, but let's put the impact into perspective. In most organizations, MRO represents about 5 to 10% of the inventory in the entire company. For a company that has $100,000 in inventory, that would mean anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 is spent on MRO. While this is not a significant amount for many, If left unchecked and a stockout occurs, this small amount can really add up. Let's say your company uses fluids like coolant and oil to run machines. Without it, employees cannot do their work. Now, let's imagine that the coolant and oil is neglected and employees discover there is a stockout. Now, in addition to the cost of ordering fluids, your line cannot run and it is losing money. So, what can we do to prevent these catastrophic losses? Preventing excessive and wasteful spending with regards to MRO inventory is not much different from other types of inventory. Monitoring levels with cycle counting or a periodic approach helps keep an eye on things, but these are not the only methods. When managing MRO inventory, in-house methods such as just-in-time and regular ABC analysis are very effective as well. While these methods require resources to perform, they allow internal employees to stay in the loop, provide input, and learn as they manage MRO levels. Another very effective way to manage MRO inventory is through a Vendor Managed Inventory, or VMI. Vendor Managed Inventory programs are a powerful way to leverage an organization's strengths and focus on your core competencies. Vendor Managed Inventory places the responsibility of selected services and/or items on a chosen supplier. This hybrid approach to managing MRO items allows an organization to either offload it all or utilize only the internal resources needed to monitor and manage supplies. Of course, from a much more strategic approach, companies need to ensure that they prioritize essential items, measure with key performance indicators, and keep things as lean as they can be, and you will have all the MRO you need while not draining resources on stockpiles of MRO inventory. You now know what maintenance, repair, and operations inventory is, what the impact could be if it is neglected, and a few of the more general methods of managing your MRO inventory. But before we go, we would like to give you a little challenge. We'd like to invite you to answer the following question in the community, comments, or upcoming assignments. What forms of MRO inventory do you have and how do you manage it? We look forward to hearing from each of you, and we'll see you in the next lecture right here on Lean Strategies International LLC, where you can find solutions that ignite your power.